The moment I let out my first cry, strange ice-blue narcissus flowers sprouted right from my newborn skin. The room was instantly filled with a scent that was both pure and totally cursed. My father, in his delulu state, decided this was a bad omen. He tried to yeet me to the ground, but my mother fought like hell to save my life. Ever since I could remember, everyone in the village dodged me like I was a red flag. I spent my days squatting by the river watching ants or staring at weeds, just completely zoning out. Then, the mansion sent word. Heir Shenyan was perpetually sick, and a seer claimed he needed a girl with supernatural vibes to fix his energy. My blue flowers were exactly what they needed. Mom wiped her tears and shoved me into the carriage. Just like that, I became the soon-to-be consort of the noble house. On the wedding day, the whole capital was buzzing, just waiting for the tea to spill. They were whispering that a sick loser and a village idiot were a match made in hell. The procession reached the fancy red carpet laid out in front of the mansion. I stopped dead in my tracks. Under everyone's shook stares, I squatted down and flipped up the corner of the heavy rug. A fat earthworm was doing its best, and my eyes lit up. I grabbed it, ready to stash it in my sleeve. That's a snack for the chickens back home. The crowd erupted in laughter the second those words left my mouth. She's actually insane, just a village brat with cursed energy, definitely not cut out for this high society life. Being a village idiot, I didn't care about their judgmental vibes at all. I tucked the worm away, dusted off my hands, looked at the red veil covering my head, and ripped it off. The veil hit the ground, revealing a face that wasn't perfect, but had that raw, wild energy. I blinked at the clouds in the sky, totally ghosting the surrounding gossip, thinking those clouds looked exactly like the bird's nest on the old tree back home. My family side of the procession wanted to crawl into a hole and die of embarrassment. And the madam of the house, my new mother-in-law, her expensive skincare couldn't hide her rage, and the bridal chamber was thick with the stench of medicine. Heir Shenyan lay on the bed, pale as a ghost. He kept his eyes shut, breathing like he had zero main character energy left. He looked just like the lightning-struck tree back home, creepy on the outside but rotting on the inside. On my first day, Nurse Lu was already trying to gaslight me. Knowing Shen Yan was on a strict herbal diet, she served up a bowl of medicine extra bitter with coptis root, and with a majorly snarky attitude she said, "Young madam, the heir is delicate. Make sure you feed him this bowl yourself." Just to show some sincere effort, I guess. I didn't take it, just leaned in for a whiff, and a bitter stench hit my nose. It was way worse than the herbal medicine I used to take back home. I frowned and pointed at the bowl. It's bitter, and it's only going to make his situation even more bitter. Young mistress, bitter medicine heals the sickness. This formula cost the noble house a fortune to obtain. I didn't even bother acknowledging that woman. I carried the bowl straight to the window, where a precious orchid sat on the ledge, its leaves already yellowing and curling. Amidst Mama Lou's horrified shriek, I tilted my hand and dumped the entire bowl into the flower pot. The flower is thirsty. This medicine might scare him, but it's perfect for killing the worms in the roots. You've gone insane. That's the noble lord's prized treasure. Mama Lou was shaking with rage, about to pop off, when suddenly a cold, detached voice drifted from inside. Let her do as she pleases. I turned around to see Shen Yan awake on the bed. His eyes were deep, like a night sky with no stars. Mama Lou shut up immediately, backing away, though she was clearly pressed. This was the first time he'd spoken since our wedding, and it was to defend a clueless bride like me. I stared at his face for a long time, and suddenly blurted out, "You look exactly like that dying locust tree at the edge of my village. You've got even more worms on you than it does." The room went dead silent. The servants were literally too scared to breathe. This was major disrespect. But Shenyan didn't get mad. He just let out a light cough, a flash of something unreadable in his eyes, and turned back into the room. Deep in the night, I was tossing and turning. The noble house's bed was way too soft. Lying on it felt like sinking into a swamp, and it was so uncomfortable. It didn't have the rustic charm of my brick bed back in the village. I grabbed my blanket and hauled it onto the floor, curling up into a ball. But just as I was about to sleep, footsteps woke me up. I looked up to see Shen Yan standing by the bed, giving me a look that was honestly so complex. "The bed is too soft and I'm starving," I muttered, rubbing my eyes. He watched how I had zero guard up, then remembered my chaotic moves like dumping his meds, or digging in the dirt all day. A strange foreign feeling started bubbling up in him. This noble house had been a graveyard for over a decade, but ever since I showed up, it had a weird, unpredictable kind of life to it. He thought tonight would be the same as always, waiting for dawn in agony and endless silence. He never expected his own bride, the girl the whole capital calls an idiot, to be fast asleep on his floor, wrapped in a blanket, with a totally satisfied smile on her face. He toyed with his sleeve and whispered, "Are you actually a fool, or just playing crazy?" Nobody answered him, just the sound of my steady breathing. Since the drama of me wearing my bridal veil all day at the wedding, is still the hot gossip of the estate. The madam has been watching me stare at the sky all day, and her face is looking more and more pressed. She straight up banned me from stepping 1 foot outside the here's Jing'an courtyard, which is literally suffocating me. The Jing'an courtyard is filled with rare, fancy flowers, all hand-picked by the madam so her son could heal in peace. A peony is in full bloom right now, looking all extra and high maintenance. The servants treat it like it's royalty. I squatted next to it, tilted my head for a long time, and finally shook my head muttering, "It's mid. Honestly, it's not as useful as a head of cabbage." So, during the lunch hour when the servants were taking their nap, I snuck a little shovel from the corner and started my villain arc against these precious plants. In my head, I'm doing the math. Rip all these flowers out, and turn this land into a vegetable garden. Much more practical. I ripped out the flashy peonies first, then cleared out the purple bushes, and even the weak-looking orchids in the corner got the boot, roots and all, lined them up neatly to the side, thinking they might make decent firewood later. In just half an hour, the once elegant and aesthetic courtyard looked like a freshly tilled vegetable patch. That dark, nutrient-rich soil was practically screaming potential. The here's right-hand man, Mo Si, saw the absolute carnage, and looked like he was about to have a heart attack as he sprinted inside. "My lord, it's a disaster. The young mistress, she's massacred the entire garden." I glanced into the room. The heir was leaning against the windowsill, reading a book, and he didn't even twitch an eyebrow, acting like he didn't hear a thing. Mochi was basically pacing on the verge of tears. Only then did the heir put down his book and slowly peeked at me through the window. I didn't stop, just kept shoveling the dirt, not even bothering to wipe the sweat off my forehead. I learned this technique back in the countryside. Every strike was powerful, leaving the soil perfectly aerated. This courtyard was always way too quiet, like a graveyard. But with the sound of my shovel hitting the dirt, it finally felt alive. I thought to myself, if I plant veggies, I can eat my own harvest. Maybe it'll even help the heir get his health back. He always looks like he's on death's door anyway. The heir watched me for a long time. I could faintly hear his breathing smoothing out a bit. He usually has this chronic sickly cough, but now he wasn't coughing at all. He said that, then picked up his book like he was really reading. But I could see he hadn't turned a single page in ages. I felt a weight lift off my chest. Knowing he wasn't holding a grudge, I finally felt chill enough to work the land. Before long, I was planting the vegetable seeds I'd brought from my maiden home into the soil. Those were my hidden gems, stashed at the bottom of my bag, and every single seed was perfectly plump. A few days later, I asked the old woman in the backyard to help me find a few chicks. They were little balls of yellow fluff, chirping non-stop. I used some bamboo strips to build a little coop in the corner of the yard for them. Finally, the place felt like a real home instead of a total graveyard. That day, Shen Wanhu from the second branch showed up with her servants decked out in fancy gear to visit the Lord, but the second she stepped inside, she was acting all disgusted, holding her nose like she was too good for us. I knew exactly why she was here. She wanted to watch me crash and burn, just like all those pick-me girls back in my hometown. She was literally flaunting those sparkling pearls on her wrist, claiming they were rare East Sea treasures that cost her 500 silver taels. She sashayed over with that nasty tone of hers. "What are you busy with, sister-in-law?" "Scooping poop." I didn't even look up, just focused on using my wooden scoop to move chicken droppings into the bucket. "It's great a fertilizer. Bury it deep and the veggies will thrive, honey." I finally looked up at her, a few streaks of dirt clearly visible on my face. She looked even more repulsed, like she'd just smelled something rancid. "You're the princess of the manor, and here you are scooping chicken crap? You're making us all look like a total joke." She tried to storm over to pull me up, but tripped over a stray rock and went flying face first. That precious string of East Sea pearls snapped, pearls scattering everywhere, and the biggest, brightest one landed with a sickening plop, straight into my bucket of chicken manure right next to me, sinking straight to the bottom. The whole courtyard went dead silent. The next second, Shen Wanhu's screech nearly brought the roof down as she jumped up and down, absolutely losing it. My pearls. Her maids scrambled to their knees to pick them up, but not a single one dared to touch my poop bucket. Everyone looked totally shook and awkward. Shen Wanhu just flopped onto the ground, sobbing like the world was ending. I honestly felt kind of bad for her. I leaned in to comfort her. "Don't cry. Chicken poop makes great fertilizer, so maybe your pearl will just act as a high-end nutrient for the soil too." That comment left her completely speechless, and she stood up, fuming, ready to shove me. But the maid hurriedly held her back, so she could only glare at me with pure hate, and finally stomped off, fuming while clutching the pearls she didn't finish picking up, making a total mess of her exit. Inside the room, Shen Yan couldn't hold it in anymore. He suddenly tilted his head and started coughing violently, but this time it sounded different, barely hiding a hint of amusement. I looked toward the room and saw Mochi frantically patting the heir's back, looking absolutely shook. After a long while the coughing stopped, and I saw the heir wave his hand, signaling Mochi to back off. His gaze landed on me through the window. I couldn't quite read his expression, but his face looked a bit flushed, even more than usual. A while later a young attendant walked over, bringing some snacks and even a chair, saying the heir sent it to make sure I ate and took a break, so I wouldn't get too tired. I rubbed my stomach. Honestly, I was starving, so I sat down to snack. The chicks were chirping and circling my feet, so I crumbled some food for them, feeling all warm and fuzzy inside. The heir is such a sweetheart for not stopping my little garden, and even feeding me snacks on top of it. From then on, I spent my days guarding the veggie patch, waiting for sprouts to pop up, and the chicks grew up so fast, losing their baby fuzz, and starting to learn how to peck for worms. Seeing that I was behaving, Mosi stopped hovering over me 24/7, only popping by occasionally to drop off food as ordered. His side-eye game finally toning down significantly. The plot twist went down late one night. I was a light sleeper and heard suppressed coughing coming from the room. At first I thought the heir just caught a cold, but the coughing got more intense, mixed with these low-pained groans, and it was genuinely heartbreaking to hear. I threw on a robe and rushed over, only to see Mosi walking out carrying a basin of bloodied water, his face ghost white under the dim lantern light in the courtyard, the very air thick with the metallic scent of blood. "Young mistress, you need to head back. The heir's old condition is acting up, and the royal physician is in there trying to save him." Mochi saw me approaching and scrambled to block my path, his voice dripping with anxiety. I stood my ground, refusing to budge. From inside the room, I could hear the imperial physicians letting out helpless, dramatic sighs. The toxic chill in the heir's body has been festering for years. This flare-up is next level, and basic tonics just aren't hitting the spot. "This old man is useless. There's nothing more we can do," one sighed. The madam's eyes were bloodshot as she held a bowl of pitch-black medicine, trembling as she approached Shenyan's bedside. "Yenner, just one more sip. It's a new recipe the physicians just whipped up." Before the bowl even touched his lips, Shenyan jerked his head away, hacking so hard he didn't even have the energy to speak. His brows were knit tight. Clearly, the bitter stench of the medicine was making his already wrecked internal organs scream in protest. Everyone in the room was spiraling, but they were all completely useless. A thought from the elders back in my village suddenly popped into my head. If a tree's roots are dried out, dumping too much water will just rot them. You have to nourish them with something light and sweet. The heir's body is basically a dried-up plant. How are all these bitter, heavy-duty meds supposed to do anything? I turned on my heel and bolted toward the small kitchen. The radish soup I simmered this afternoon was still being kept warm on the stove. I'd tossed in some wild ginseng roots I'd dug up from behind the mountain. It smelled absolutely divine. Back home, everyone swore it was the ultimate health boost. The mansion servants had tossed it away like a common weed earlier. I'd secretly snagged it, dried it out, and saved it for a rainy day. When I walked back in with the refreshing bowl of radish soup, the chaos in the room was still peaking. I shoved the maid blocking my way, marched straight to the bed, and held the bowl out to Shenyan. "Your Highness, drink this. The roots are dry, they need something light and sweet. You've already been overdosed on these tonics." The room went dead silent, everyone looking at me like I'd lost my mind. "Preposterous," the madam swatted my hand away. The soup sloshed onto the bedding, and she hissed, "You clearly have malicious intent. What are you trying to pull? You dare bring a peasant bowl of radish soup to Yenner? Are you trying to murder him? Guards! Drag this brainless girl out and throw her in the woodshed." The servants immediately joined the fray, shouting that I was trying to kill the heir and lunging to drag me away. Moti stood to the side, wanting to help but too terrified to move, just looking at Shenyan in a panic. My arms were being pinned back, but I refused to look away, locking eyes with Shenyan. "There's something good in here, it'll help your health." Shenyan leaned against the soft bed, his complexion pale as paper, a smear of blood still stained his lips. He suddenly looked up at me, his gaze deep and intense. "I'll drink it." His voice was weak but carried an air of unquestionable authority. "Yenner, you've lost your mind." The madam of the marquis couldn't stop him. I watched as Shenyan struggled to sit up, his gaze piercing through the crowd, landing directly on the bowl of soup in my hands. His eyes were complex, full of suspicion, helplessness, and a flicker of trust he didn't even realize he had. "Give it to me!" He reached out, and I quickly pushed past the servants to hand him the bowl. He took it with a shaky hand but proceeded to sip it slowly until the very last drop was gone. Mochi rushed over with a handkerchief. Shenyan wiped his lips and let out a soft sigh, clearly finding it easier to swallow than his usual medicinal tonics. The madam was shaking with rage, but all she could do was stand on the sidelines and vent her frustration. I knelt by the bed, watching his face, secretly hoping he would pull through. That night, I kept watch by the chicken coop in the corner of the courtyard, mentally calculating when the skin would be big enough to make a nourishing soup for the heir. The only problem is they're growing way too slowly, and who knows how long that'll take. As the sun started to peak, Motsi came running over, looking absolutely shook with disbelief. Young madam! Young madam! The heir stopped coughing. He actually slept soundly through half the night. I jumped up and sprinted into the room, finding Shenyan propped up on his bed. His eyes were much clearer. He was still pale, but the deathly Antora from last night was totally gone. The madam was holding his hand, her eyes rimmed with red. When she saw me walk in, she gave me a look, complex, but surprisingly, she didn't snap at me like usual. Later, I overheard Motsi and the other servants gossiping, saying the royal physician came by early to check his pulse, totally bugging out and calling it a miracle, claiming the cold toxins in the heir's body had significantly dissipated, and after prying they realized it was all thanks to my bowl of radish soup. Little did they know, the secret wasn't the radish, but those wild ginseng roots I'd mistaken for weeds. I just thought the roots smelled nice, so I dug them up and dried them, tossing a bit into my cooking for a fresh, clean flavor, never expecting they'd actually be a lifesaver. The madam's attitude toward me has slowly started to soften, occasionally even sending servants over with fancy fabrics. But honestly, I'm way more obsessed with my chicks and my vegetable patch. Tell me, once the chickens get plump and I stew them for the heir, will he recover faster? Mochi just stared at me, sighed in defeat, but still answered with a straight face. Don't worry, young mistress, I'm sure it'll do wonders. Shen Yan, listening from inside the room, let his lips curl up into a secret smile. The sunlight hitting his face finally lost that usual icy vibe. Half a month later, the manor threw a banquet, claiming it was to celebrate Shen Yan's health taking a turn for the better. I really didn't want to go. My sprouts had just poked through the soil, and I needed to stop the chicks from pecking at everything. But the madam came to fetch me herself, and Shen Yan gave me a signal, so I had to play along and go. The banquet was packed and noisy. I couldn't sit still, my mind stuck on my garden, just praying for this to end. The second madam sat across from me with Shen Wanru, all smiles, but her eyes kept shady scanning me. After a few rounds of drinks, the patriarch brought up the emperor-gifted white jade Guanyin statue, bragging about how it protects the household. The second madam stood up instantly, smiling at the madam. Sister-in-law loves jade, so I brought it for you to admire. Before long, a servant brought out a brocade box containing the white jade Guanyin. Mosi whispered to me, young mistress, this statue was gifted by the emperor. It's usually locked in the vault, with keys held only by the patriarch and his brother. The second madam being this generous today is definitely giving sus vibes. The second madam stood up herself to present the statue to the madam. As she walked past me with the box, she suddenly let out a dramatic oops, acting like she tripped over a table leg. She stumbled toward me, intentionally grabbing my arm to use me as a prop, then let go at the perfect moment. The box flew and the sound of it shattering echoed through the entire hall. The white jade Guanyin hit the stone floor, pieces flying everywhere. The main head of the statue landed right at my feet. The banquet went dead silent, and the patriarch's face turned darker than a stormy night. The second Madam Autumn slumped to the floor, clutching her chest and arm, sobbing her heart out to the madam and the patriarch. Patriarch, I was just walking along perfectly fine. But the young mistress suddenly grabbed my arm, and I lost my balance, causing the box to drop. This is an imperial treasure. If the emperor finds out, our entire manor is finished. What are we going to do? She cried while checking out the crowd, making sure everyone saw the red mark on her arm, where I supposedly grabbed her. The performance was pure White Lotus energy, making it look like I smashed a royal treasure just to spite her. Shen Wanru immediately rushed to help her up, pointing at me and joining in on the screaming. Exactly, I saw it with my own eyes. The sister-in-law literally grabbed my mother first. She clearly saw the jade Guanyin was priceless, couldn't get her hands on it, so she trashed it and tried to frame my mother. She's just a country bumpkin with a heart as dark as her personality. Most of the relatives didn't see the full tea, so seeing the second madam's fake waterworks and the red marks, they started jumping on the hate train. Some were telling the Lord to handle this strictly, others said to drag me to the authorities before the Marquess estate gets dragged into the drama. The servants didn't even dare to breathe. Moats was sweating bullets, leaning over to the Lord to spill the truth. My lord. The young mistress was sitting the whole time, she didn't even lift a finger. Before she could finish, a sharp glare from the Lord shut her up. The Lord is terrified about the imperial gift. And since the second madam is his own sister-in-law, he doesn't want to call her out in front of everyone. Just wants to keep the drama on the down low for now. The madam frowned, looking at me with an awkward vibe, about to say something then stopped. I wasn't sweating it, no need to defend myself. I just kept my eyes locked on the second madam's sleeve. When she fell over earlier, I caught a weird bitter scent. Not medicine, not food, just a gross pungent smell. I stepped forward, pointing at her sleeve. That smells bitter. Second madam, definitely not like perfume. The second madam went ghost white, instinctively shielding her sleeve with a panicked look in her eyes. You're just talking trash. That's just my perfume. What bitter smell are you talking about? You're just trying to frame me. Her super sus reaction actually made the crowd's gossip die down a bit. Right on cue, footsteps echoed from the doorway. Mozi cheered, the heir. I turned around to see Shen Yan, and he wasn't even being helped by anyone. He was strolling in on his own. He was wearing white silk robes, looking healthy and sharp, no trace of that frail and sickly energy from before. Yan'er, why are you here? You just recovered. Hurry and take a seat. The madame said, clearly stressed. Seeing him, the second madam's face turned even ugly. Your Highness the heir, why are you doing this? Shen Yan didn't even glance at her, his eyes sweeping over the shattered pieces of the Guanyin statue on the floor, then locking on to me, and he stated clearly, the imperial gift has been damaged, and the Marcus's estate will take full responsibility. But if anyone thinks they can use this to frame the heir's wife, I will be the first one to shut that down. Does anyone have a problem with that? His voice wasn't loud, but it radiated major main character energy. The banquet went dead silent. Everyone was too shook to even breathe. Yan'er, do you realize this was an imperial gift? The patriarch asked in a low, warning tone. Shen Yan bowed his head slightly, his tone calm but giving zero ground. I am aware, but compared to some royal trinket, rooting out the snakes hiding in this estate is far more important. Everyone just stared at each other, totally lost. I saw the second madam looking completely panicked, then remembered that bitter scent from earlier, and it all clicked, so I lunged forward and snatched the perfume sachet off her waist. That bitter smell was definitely coming from there. What do you think you're doing? She shrieked, trying to grab it back, but the sachet hit the floor before she could. The seams burst, spilling red powder and dried flower petals everywhere. It was definitely saffron, and the fine powder had that exact same bitter scent the second madam was reeking of. Mochi's face went pale as he knelt to inspect it. This is oleander powder. Your Highness, this is highly toxic. The second madam collapsed onto the floor, trembling and gasping, unable to form a coherent lie. It's not mine, this isn't mine, someone is framing me. Shen Yan slowly stepped forward, picked up the bag of powder, and fixed the second madam with an icy murderous glare. Saffron to stimulate blood flow and oleander to kill. Second aunt, I've been bedridden for years. Was it all thanks to your diligent care? I was stunned, turning to look at Shen Yan, who reached out to grab my hand. My hand was still covered in garden dirt from the afternoon, but he held it tight, his voice deadly serious. He is not stupid, her intuition is sharper than any of yours. She is my savior. He paused, his gaze sweeping across the room like a warning. 3 years ago, I realized the herbal medicine was tampered with, and quietly confirmed it was laced with chronic cold poison. I played the part of the frail and invalid. First, to lull the culprit into a false sense of security so they'd eventually show their true colors. And second, to secretly track down the source of the poison and their little squad of accomplices. He turned to look at me, his gaze softening with a hint of genuine warmth. The aphrodisiac in Ahi's radish soup didn't just accidentally soothe my chronic cold poison, it completely sent the second branch of the family into a spiral. Watching my health take a turn for the better, they panicked that their long-term scheme was about to get exposed, so they rushed to plant the Jade Guanyin trap, hoping to frame Ahi and get her out of the picture. They were thirsty to seize the household management and the family's lucrative waterway shipping business. This was exactly the moment I'd been waiting for to drop the hammer and trap them all. The second madam looked ghost white, unable to spit out a single excuse to save herself. Shen Wanru was shook, hiding in the corner and too terrified to even breathe. Everyone else was absolutely stunned, their jaws hitting the floor as the situation did a total 180. The Marchioness looked cold enough to freeze hell over, pointing a finger at the second madam, speechless with rage, before ordering the second madam's arrest and confining the entire second branch to their quarters for a full investigation. I never imagined you'd be cold-blooded enough to poison Yan'er just to help the second sons and compete for the succession. With this drama over, no one dared to look down on me, the country bumpkin crown princess, ever again. Even the Marchioness looked at me with a newfound genuine kindness. Shen Yan's health was improving daily. He even insisted on carrying a small bucket of water to help me tend the vegetable patch. His frame was still lean, but there was color in his cheeks, and that gloomy aura he used to have was finally fading away. Wearing white silk robes, he squatted by the field. His movements were clumsy, but he was taking it so seriously. I rushed over to snatch the bucket out of his hands. You shouldn't be doing this heavy lifting. Let me handle it. Shen Yan held onto my hand, a playful glint in his eyes. It's fine. I want to do this with you. The vegetables you grow are way more interesting than any calligraphy in the study. You're great at watering. The plants are definitely going to love it. Mochi stood nearby, staring in disbelief. He'd clearly never seen his master doing such manual labor in his life. Within a few days, the cabbage I planted was looking lush and green, the leaves so plump they practically dripped with vitality, and the greens and radishes were looking way fresher than anything you could buy at the market. The servants who used to laugh at me for using chicken manure and farming were now lining up, begging me for a few heads of lettuce. The first was Grandma Zhang's from the kitchen, who looked at me, totally embarrassed and shy. "Young madam, since these vegetables look so gourmet, could you spare a few for me to make soup for the young heir?" I generously pulled out a few heads of cabbage for her. Next thing I know, every servant and maid came running, and even the butler had Mochi ask me for some greens to take home. I teased them while harvesting. "Didn't you all say growing veggies was beneath the dignity of the Marcus's estate?" The head maid turned bright red. "It's my fault. I was blind. The young madam's harvest is infused with spiritual energy. It tastes way better than fine dining." I almost died laughing. Spiritual energy, please. It's literally just me watering the crops daily and using chicken manure. I'm just built different when it comes to gardening. One afternoon, Shenyan was busy practicing his calligraphy in the study. I checked it out, and his strokes were so powerful and aesthetic, they'd put the signs at the local temple to shame. I snatched a few finished pages, hid them in my robes, and booked it to the chicken coop. Shenyan and Mozi followed me, looking totally confused. "Ahi, what are you doing with my calligraphy?" I stood on my tiptoes to paste the papers onto the chicken coop fence, dusted off my hands, and said, "This handwriting is so fire, it's basically a protective talisman. Now those pests won't dare come near the coop again." Shenyan stared at the coop covered in his masterpiece. Caught between laughing and crying, he sat down in front of the coop, pointed at each of his elegant, flowing characters, and started teaching me how to pronounce them, one by one. The afternoon sun was cozy, the chicks were chirping at his feet, and Shenyan's cool, calm voice echoed through the courtyard. Days like this, total main character vibes, just pure peace. A few days later, Grand Princess Taiyan invited the women of the Marquise's house to a social event. Before we left, the madam sent the house tailor to measure me for some fancy silk and brocade gowns. I chose a simple, rough-spun dress instead, and the madam looked like she was about to have a heart attack. I walked out of the garden with a small woven basket filled with plump, red berries. "Mother, these are super sweet, we should bring them for everyone to try." I had cleared a tiny patch by the vegetable beds to grow strawberries. They were perfectly ripe, huge, and juicy, absolute perfection. When we arrived at the Grand Princess's mansion, the courtyard was packed with elite socialites dripping in jewelry. Shen Wanru was actually there too. Probably because the second madam begged the main madam to pull some strings, letting her crack. "I just need her to stay in her lane and stop acting out." Shen Wanyan had dialed back her usual arrogance, but she still couldn't shake that grudge-holding habit. So when she saw me in a simple linen dress carrying a basket, she immediately slithered over to throw shade. "My dear sister-in-law, did you just crawl out of a field? Showing up to a party looking so drab is honestly so disrespectful." The other noble ladies nearby snickered, their eyes filled with pure judgment. I didn't even give them the time of day. I just walked straight to the table and dumped the strawberries from my basket. The bright red strawberries piled up on the white porcelain plate, releasing a sweet scent that immediately snatched everyone's attention. The Grand Princess curiously picked one up to taste, her eyes lighting up. "What kind of fruit is this? So sweet and refreshing. This consort has truly never seen anything like it." Reporting to the Grand Princess, "These are strawberries I grew in my own courtyard." Shen Wanyan wasn't buying it, so she snatched one to taste, and her expression dropped instantly. All the shade she planned to throw just evaporated. The other nobles noticed and swarmed in to get a taste for themselves. Everyone was showering me with compliments. They crowded around, desperate to know how I grew them. "Madam, how do you grow these strawberries? Can you teach us? I have a garden at home, I want to plant some too." The original mockery flipped into pure thirsty obsession. I was surrounded by the elite, dropping tips on watering and fertilizing like a pro, low-key becoming the main character of the room. As the tea was being spilled, I felt someone tug my sleeve. I turned around, and it was Shen Yan. I didn't even notice when he arrived, but his face was cold as he grabbed my wrist, his tone brooking zero argument. "Come with me," he said, dragging me away from the crowd. "What is wrong with you here?" I haven't finished handing out the strawberries yet. Shen Yan stared daggers at the spot where I'd been surrounded, his brows furrowing. "Don't get so close to them." His grip was a little tight, his gaze filled with some emotion I couldn't quite read. It was giving territorial vibes. I felt a leftover strawberry in my pocket and offered it to him. "It's super sweet, taste it." Shen Yan took it but didn't eat it, just looked down at me, the simmering annoyance in his eyes melting into something soft. Yeah, sweet. Ever since we got back from the Grand Princess's estate, my strawberry plants have become the prized possession of the Marquis Manor. Even the madam sent someone to move 2 pots to her quarters, though the second branch, despite being grounded, still won't stay quiet. Shen Wanyan still gives me the side-eye every time she spots me from a distance, still shooting me glares from behind the corridor, acting all spiteful. But I couldn't care less. I'm just trying to protect my veggies and strawberries. Seeing the radishes are almost ready for harvest, I have to check on them a few times a day. Early one morning, just as the sun was peeking out, I lugged my small hoe to the field, but the moment I reached the patch, something felt totally off. That specific patch of radishes on the west side, the soil was a weird deep color compared to the rest, with a faint grayish tint, and when I got closer to smell it, besides the usual earthy scent, there was this gross, pungent chemical stench. The earthworms that usually pop up to breathe, nowhere to be found. My baby greens were just sprouting, but the tips were already turning a sickly yellow. I squatted down, rubbing some soil between my fingers. It felt bitter, and my skin burned a little. This dirt is definitely compromised. This is exactly how crops look when someone messes with the soil. They either wither away or rot from the root up. It hit me like a ton of bricks. The second branch is clearly still bitter, creeping over here to poison my patch, just to spite me. C happened to walk up with breakfast, and seeing me staring at the dirt with such a blank look, she looked totally shook. "Young mistress, what's wrong?" I shook my head, dusting the toxic dirt off my hands. "Nothing, the soil was just a little dry," I said, deciding not to make a scene, since the second branch is already grounded, and making a fuss would just stir up drama in the imperial court. Plus, I don't want to stress Shen Yan out. Farming drama should be settled with farming tactics. No need to drag him into this mess. I went back to my room and in no time grabbed my small hoe again, hauled 2 wooden buckets, and headed back out. I carefully dug up every inch of that tainted poison soil, dumped it into a bucket, and then shoveled fresh, healthy black earth from the other side of the field to fill the gaps. I hauled that bucket of toxic waste straight to the second madam's courtyard. Inside, her prized orchids were in full bloom, but since she's under house arrest, she was aggressively pruning them like she was taking her rage out on the flowers. "Why are you here?" "Get out!" The second madam saw me and hit peak toxicity, her face twisting with pure rage. I ignored her completely and walked right up to her most expensive, exotic orchids, tipped the bucket over, and splash, dumped that poisonous gross soil all over her plants, burying half the stems in the muck. "You!" The second madam was shaking with pure unadulterated rage, pointing at me, completely speechless. I just gave her a straight face and deadpanned. "Your potting soil looked crusty, so I decided to bless you with some premium dirt instead." With that, I grabbed the empty bucket and walked off, leaving the second madam there, basically choking on her own fury. I knew the madam would come for me, but honestly, I'm unbothered. She was the one who had her people dump that soil into my vegetable patch. So I just returned the favor. It's called giving back to the community, right? If you plant toxic seeds, don't be shocked when you're the one eating the poisonous fruit. Sure enough, that afternoon the second madam showed up at the madam's quarters, clinging to her maid like she was the victim of the century. She was sobbing her heart out, claiming I intentionally sabotaged her precious orchids, and she added some extra spice, lying that I'm disrespectful to my elders, and that my heart is just pure evil. The madam didn't fully buy it, but she still sent for me to face the music. As soon as I stepped into the hall, I saw Shen Yan lounging in a chair, looking completely unbothered, like he'd already clocked the whole situation. Why did you destroy the second madam's flowers?" When the madam asked, I spilled the tea. She sent people to put toxic soil in my vegetable garden, trying to kill my crops, so I just used that same soil on her flowers, to let her prize plants get a taste of their own medicine. The second madam's face did a full 180, and she shrieked, "Lies! When would I ever send people to your garden?" I didn't waste another breath. I just locked eyes with Shen Yan. Shen Yan glanced at the second madam, his voice calm but packing some serious main character energy. "Second aunt, go back to your courtyard. He isn't the type to cause drama for no reason." The second madam was clearly pressed, but Shen Yan's gaze shut her down, so she just shot me a death glare and stormed out. She probably never expected that her own little stunt would end up being the receipts that got her caught. That night, the second madam's courtyard was in total chaos. Honestly, it was giving messy reality TV. I peeked through the window and heard her bawling over her flowers, whining that her entire collection of exotic plants had turned black and wilted overnight, leaves completely rotting away. Then I heard her maid screaming in panic because the second madam had broken out in itchy, painful red rashes all over her skin. So the madam had to summon a royal physician immediately. I stayed in to get my beauty sleep instead of watching the dumpster fire. The next morning, word spread that Shen Yan personally led a search of the second madam's place. They tested the soil in those fancy pots and found the exact same chronic toxin that had been poisoning the courtyard. This poison might be slow-acting, but it's honestly genius-level petty. Not only did it kill every single plant in her garden, but the real kicker is that touching the stuff gives. If you're exposed to that space for long enough, the toxins slowly seep straight into your blood. Combined with the cold poison from the past, it's a total wreck. At best, you're bedridden and ruined. At worst, you're 6 feet under. The second branch's ambitions are so obvious it's painful. This isn't just about destroying a few flowers. They're clearly using that innocent-looking dirt to silently plot Shen Yan's and my demise. They're ruthless enough to toss brotherhood out the window just to secure the inheritance and power. Hiding poison in the daily routine, the gaslighting is real, and the plotting is invisible. Their hearts are so cold it's actually giving sociopath. Once the truth came out, Shen Yan's face went stone cold. He immediately reported the second branch to the patriarch for attempting to assassinate a family member. Accusing them of plotting to steal the title, he ordered them evicted from the estate immediately. He exiled them to a rural farm, banned from ever stepping foot in the capital again. He literally purged the house of all that toxic internal drama. Mozi was the one who spilled all this tea to me. I just nodded and kept watering my radishes, unfazed. Shen Yan handled all of that without even checking in with me once. But at sunset, he showed up at my vegetable patch anyway. He stood on the edge of the field watching me roast sweet potatoes, his eyes holding a smile, but there was some hidden shade behind his gaze. He sat down next to me, staring at my charcoal-stained fingertips. Ahuo, you were the one who swapped the soil in the second madam's courtyard, weren't you? Someone wanted to sabotage my garden. Why didn't you tell me? Field problems should be handled in the field. I didn't want to bother you with big-picture estate stuff. I can handle my own garden just fine. I'm not adding to your list of problems. Shen Yan suddenly leaned in and pulled me into a hug, leaving me shook. His chest was so warm, smelling like clean herbs mixed with the sweet scent of roasted potatoes. Oh, you. He let out a heavy sigh and gently patted my back. The hug was so sudden, but after a moment of hesitation, I held out half my sweet potato to his lips. Eat up, it's super sweet. Once the second branch was finally gone, nobody in the estate had any more drama about my farming obsession. Even Granny Zhang from the kitchen would hover by my gate every day, hoping to get a taste of the fresh harvest. My veggies were popping off crop after crop. The storage room was packed with napa cabbage, and the radishes were perfectly crisp. The strawberries were a constant harvest, and even the chicks grew into plump chickens, laying baskets of eggs daily. That day, Shen Yan got back from his duties and saw me squatting in the yards sorting strawberries, and he strolled over with a grin. With this many fruits and veggies, there's no way the estate can finish them. It's a tragedy to let them go to waste. Tossing them feels wrong, but I have no one to gift them to. Motsis chimed in from the sidelines. Young mistress, why not just open a shop? People in the capital have never tasted anything as top tier as the produce you grow. It'll be a total hit, and letting more people taste your harvest. Isn't that a win-win? My eyes lit up. This idea was an absolute slay and totally matched my vibe. The veggies in the field are thriving. It would be a crime to let them rot, and there's nothing better than letting everyone taste that garden-fresh goodness. I grabbed Shen Yan's sleeve. Yes, let's do it. Open the shop. I want everyone in the capital to taste my harvest. Strawberries sweeter than honey, radishes with that perfect crunch. Seeing me so hyped, the corner of Shen Yan's eyes crinkled with a smile, and he immediately agreed. As long as you're happy, leave it all to me. He's always been a boss at getting things done, so he told Mozi to hunt for a shop space near the estate that same day, specifically scouting for high-traffic areas, close to the fields with a solid, clean layout. By the next morning, Mozi came back with the tea. He'd found the perfect spot, just 2 streets south of the estate, right by the market entrance. It's popping with foot traffic, but not annoyingly loud. The shop isn't huge, just a main room and a tiny backyard, but the layout is chef's kiss. Big bright windows that let the sunlight hit every corner, keeping the place spotless. The backyard is perfect for resting the produce and setting up a simple shed for the tools. It honestly couldn't be more convenient. When Shen Yan brought me to check it out, I was low-key obsessed the second I walked in. The floors are packed tight and sturdy, no mold in the corners, and even the rafters are clean. The whole place just feels airy and fresh. I sat down to check the floor, then walked over to the window and pushed it open. The buzz of the market and the scent of fresh greens drifted in, and I felt so at peace. This is it. This place is perfect. Moving the produce is easy, and it's super accessible for customers. Seeing me satisfied, Shen Yan immediately closed the deal with the previous owner, moved fast to handle all the paperwork, and had a crew clean the place top to bottom in no time. He even hired a carpenter to build some wooden shelves. Sturdy ones, plus a little wooden desk by the window so I can easily weigh the veggies and handle the money. The part I'm most hyped about is the storefront sign. I asked Mochi for a brush and ink. After deep reflection, I carefully brushed 4 words onto the paper: He and Vegetable Garden. My handwriting isn't exactly elegant, but it radiates the grit and strength of someone who works the land. He is my name, representing the crops that rise from the earth. Anne is my wish for peaceful days, steady business, and that everyone who eats my greens stays healthy and blessed. Before the grand opening, I led the maids in sorting and carefully displaying the freshly picked harvest. The bok choy was tied into neat little bundles, the radishes still dusted with fresh, earthy soil, the strawberries nestled in woven baskets, and even the pickled cucumbers were displayed in 2 jars in the corner. Shenyan was worried I'd tire myself out, so he stayed by my side the whole time, setting up shelves, dusting cabinets, and insisting we keep prices low so everyday people could actually afford them. By dawn on opening day, the shop was already packed. Passers-by were curious to see the heir's wife running a vegetable shop, and once they tasted the strawberries I offered, their eyes lit up. The fruit was so sweet, sweeter than honey itself. Word spread fast. By midday there was a line wrapped around the block. Grandma Zhang brought the kitchen staff to buy in bulk, saying they needed to make cabbage soup for the young master. The prince's manor maids showed up with food boxes, claiming their mistress had a specific craving for my strawberries. Even eunuch Li from the palace caught wind of the rumors and made his way over, saying the empress herself had heard about my legendary produce and had sent him specifically to secure a crate of bok choy and strawberries. Dressed in simple, rough-spun clothes, I stood behind the counter, weighing and packing produce with effortless speed. When an old lady came by with her cane to buy radishes, mentioning her grandson was sick and had no appetite, I slipped 2 extra ones into her bag, and even taught her a recipe for the perfect, nourishing radish soup. People whispered, "The heir's wife is so kind-hearted, she's nothing like those other stuck-up nobles." After court adjourned, Shen Yan didn't head back to the manor. He came straight to the shop, traded his silk robes for work clothes, and rolled up his sleeves to help me haul crates. The way he looked so serious while fumbling with the heavy baskets had the people in line whispering and stealing glances. Wait, isn't that the heir of the Duke's manor? Is he really here playing shopkeeper for his wife? Your Highness, aren't you worried people will laugh at you for doing this? Shen Yan looked at me and laughed, his eyes filled with pure, unadulterated tenderness. My wife grows the best produce in the world. There's nothing shameful about helping her sell a few more crates. Those words warmed my heart instantly, and my hands grew even. In the days that followed, the reputation of the Heian Veggie Garden was thriving, majorly. Every morning at the crack of dawn, the commoners were already queuing up in front of the shop. They were obsessed, saying our veggies were fresh, fairly priced, and actually filling. The line stretched to the end of the street, and the chatter mixed with the scent of fresh produce was more hyped than a local festival. As I handed over a bunch of greens to one customer, they couldn't help but ask, "Young madam, your produce is so fresh and crisp," and with people lining up and fighting for it every single day, logically speaking, you should be hiking up those prices. Why are you still selling them for so cheap? I just smiled and wiped my hands. Veggies grow from the dirt. They shouldn't cost a fortune. As long as you all enjoy them, that's what matters. Things got so busy that Shen Yan helped me hire some servants with quick hands and honest vibes to assist. I even set up a small wooden table in front of the shop, serving free veggie porridge and strawberry tea for everyone to sample, teaching them how to pick the best greens and how to use organic compost. Seeing me happy every day, the smile on Shen Yan's face became a permanent fixture. After he clocked out from official duties, he'd come over to help me close up shop and settle the accounts, sometimes even joining me in the fields to harvest. Watching you farm and sell produce, you're honestly more skilled at this than I am at handling imperial court business. I brushed off the greens in my basket, feeling incredibly grounded. Turns out, relying on my own 2 hands to turn crops from the fields into meals on people's tables is actually such a flex. The Heian Veggie Garden didn't just give the capital fresh produce, it made me feel like I finally had a solid foundation of my own within this estate. The days passed, stable and peaceful, with radishes and greens ripening batch after batch in the fields. We even harvested the second round of strawberries. I also pickled a few jars of veggies using my hometown method. Packed in ceramic jars with salt, they came out crispy and delicious, the ultimate side dish for porridge. That day, I was carrying a bucket of water to hydrate the crops. Watching the new green shoots sparkling with dewdrops, my heart felt completely at peace. Mo Si scrambled in, looking both shook and hyped. "Young madam, someone from the palace has arrived. They're delivering an imperial decree saying, His Majesty heard the heir recovered from his illness thanks to your care. Now that your veggie shop is famous far and wide, His Majesty specifically summons you and the heir to enter the palace tomorrow for an audience. The madam of the estate heard the news and rushed over, told the servants to load me up with silk, satin, and all the gold and silver bling, stuffing it all into a jewelry box, lecturing me on how to follow palace etiquette, and demanding I bow until my forehead bruised to thank the emperor. I just shook my head, pushed the jewelry box aside, and pulled out a jar of homemade pickles from the storage room, then grabbed a bamboo basket neatly filled with fresh baby bok choy I harvested this morning, crunchy radishes still smelling like the earth, and some super fresh strawberries I snagged from the garden. Every single one of them was juicy enough to burst. This is more than enough. You can't eat jewelry, but bok choy is a vibe, and nothing hits harder than sweet strawberries and pickles with porridge, all grown by yours truly. I want His Majesty to taste something actually fresh. The madam was losing her mind, calling me clueless, and saying no one brings such low-class peasant food into the palace. Shen Yan just laughed, stopped her, and reached over to fix the ties on my basket so the strawberries wouldn't fall out. Mother, let a woe bring it. His Majesty has always hated fake formalities. A woe's genuine heart is what's truly rare. He helped me wrap the pickle jar, tucked it carefully into the basket, and smoothed out my clothes. Don't be nervous, I'll go with you tomorrow. His Majesty will definitely love how authentic this is. When we got to the palace, the eunuchs and palace maids saw me carrying that basket, and, since a corner of the porcelain jar was poking out, along with the green leaves and those bright red berries, they were all side-eyeing me, struggling to hide their smirks. A noble consort of the house, showing up to court with literal groceries? In their eyes, I was obviously a total clown, probably waiting for me to pull a massive public fail. The emperor sat on the dragon throne, looking chill, though his eyes were giving off major "I'm assessing you" energy. Seeing us approach, he waved us over. Shen Yan, get up here and let me get a good look at you. Heard you've been doing way better. The glow-up is real. You look great. Shen Yan led me forward to pay respects, and the emperor's gaze locked onto me immediately. But it wasn't that standard. Polite, I'm looking at a random noble's wife vibe. He literally scanned me up and down twice, his eyes flashing with genuine curiosity and approval. So, this is the consort, is it? I heard Shen Yan had been suffering for years, and it was thanks to your radish soup that he finally started recovering. I was skeptical, but seeing you looking so humble and down to earth, you really do seem like someone with the secret skills. He paused, then suddenly chuckled, looking genuinely relieved. I've also heard you opened an Heian vegetable patch near the Marcus's residence, and it's been absolutely thriving. Your Majesty, that is indeed true. We grew way too many vegetables, and the Marquise's estate couldn't finish them all. It felt like a waste to just toss them, so this humble subject thought, why not open a shop so everyone could enjoy them fresh? I priced everything at base cost so even the commoners could afford it. Seeing them happy with their meals is all the joy I need. Shen Yan chimed in, Your Majesty, he never plays dirty when running the shop. The greens are harvested and sold on the same day. She never cheats on the scale, and she even gives extra to the elderly and those struggling. The people in the capital say that Heian shop doesn't just sell vegetables. They're selling security and a full belly. The emperor nodded repeatedly as he listened, his eyes filled with even more genuine admiration. A full belly, what a line. Nowadays most merchants only care about lining their own pockets. Yet you've managed to stay so grounded. You understand agriculture, you've got a head for business. And you aren't chasing clout, that is honestly so rare. As he spoke, his gaze drifted to the covered basket in my hand, his curiosity clearly piquing. I assume whatever is in that basket is exactly what you wanted me to try. With vegetables, fruit, and a jar, this is a far cry from the usual rare treasures people scramble to gift me. I handed over the basket and replied, cool as a cucumber, Your Majesty. Inside are fresh greens picked this morning, some crunchy radishes, and our shop's best-selling strawberries, all freshly pulled from the soil. That jar is pickled vegetables I made myself. They hit different when eaten with porridge. This consort has no fancy treasures to offer. I just wanted you to taste something real. As soon as I said that, the eunuchs and palace maids held back their laughs, and even the officials looked shook. They probably never expected anyone to gift the emperor literal garden produce. But the emperor wasn't offended at all. If anything, he was even more intrigued, instantly ordering his staff to bring out bowls, chopsticks, and white porcelain plates. As it happens, I've been dying to know what these vegetables everyone in the city is obsessing over actually taste like. The eunuch quickly sliced the radishes, arranged the strawberries on a small plate, and served the pickles as well. The emperor picked. The crunch was fresh, and it gave such a crisp, clean vibe. After 2 bites, he nodded. It was definitely fresher than those sad, reheated veggies from the imperial kitchen. He picked up a strawberry and took a bite. The sweet juice just melted on his tongue. It was perfectly sweet, no cap. No wonder the commoners are obsessed with buying these. Finally, he grabbed some pickles to go with his white porridge, honestly, a top-tier side dish. I haven't had much of an appetite lately, but this hits different, way better than any rare delicacies. He kept eating, then signaled the eunuch to serve some to the crown prince sitting right there. Try it, son. The goods from Heian Garden really live up to the hype. Henry has everyone from royals to peasants scrambling for them. Crown Prince in song couldn't stop praising it either. Nobody in the hall dared to mock me anymore. Everyone was low-key shook, showing nothing but respect. The emperor was in such a good mood, he immediately ordered a reward of 100 taels of gold, along with piles of silk and rare priceless treasures. When the eunuchs brought in the loot, it was blindingly luxurious. The court officials were absolutely floored. Who would have thought a jar of pickles could secure such a massive bag? I didn't even look at the treasures. I looked the emperor straight in the eye and asked, "Your Majesty, I don't really want any of that. I heard there's a random patch of empty wasteland over in the west side of the Imperial Garden. Could your highness grant me that land to grow potatoes? If I grow enough, the palace gets fresh produce, and my shop can stock enough for the commoners to enjoy, too." Everyone in the hall was gagged. Even Shen Yan turned to look at me, his eyes full of unhidden amusement. The emperor was stunned for a second, then started cackle-laughing until he was basically losing it. Grow potatoes? Ha ha ha, brilliant. Truly a brilliant princess consort. Doesn't care for gold or silver, only cares about farming, and she's thinking of the palace and the people. That's such a rare mindset. I grant your request. I'll even name you Princess Heian. That land in the garden is officially yours, and nobody better interfere. From now on, the palace will source more veggies from Heian Garden so the imperial kitchen can learn a thing or two about flavor. I quickly kowtowed to show my gratitude, screaming internally, "This means I can plant way more crops." The servants who were shading me earlier were now bowing respectfully, not even daring to breathe too loud. Later, when I ran into various officials and noblewomen outside the palace, the same people who used to think I was just some country bumpkin now had to kneel and pay their respects properly, addressing me as Your Highness with total practiced deference. Back at the Marquis's estate, Shen Yan looked at the chests overflowing with gold and treasures, then reached out to boot my nose, teasingly saying, "Ahi, you're a real princess now, huh? Basically richer than me." I grabbed all that gold, dumped it into Shen Yan's arms, and told him it's all his. He used to be so sick and needed meds. Even though he's better now, we need to stay prepared. Plus he needs high-quality paper for his calligraphy. His handwriting is elite, and the scraps he's been using are dusty AF. Time for an upgrade. This gold is plenty. Honestly, no amount of money beats Shen Yan being healthy or seeing his gorgeous handwriting. Shen Yan held the stash, his eyes full of soft boy energy as he pulled me into a hug. "Silly he, having you here is worth more than anything." He leaned down to kiss my hairline, the sunlight filtering through the curtains and hitting us just right. The gold in his arms might be warm, but his embrace? That hits different. News that I'd been named Princess He and spread like wildfire through the capital. The He and vegetable garden business started popping off like crazy. It wasn't just commoners lining up for the goods. The elite aristocrats had their orders backed up until next month, and even the imperial palace started hitting us up on the regular. Eunuch Lee would show up every time with a huge grin. The emperor can't stop raving about the princess's veggies. The imperial kitchen is literally obsessed and waits for your fresh drops every single day. But of course, success invites haters. Our glow-up had everyone green with envy. At first, the snobby noblewomen were just gossiping behind my back, saying a princess running a shop was giving desperate and shameful vibes. The first one to actually crash out was old man Wang Tam, the owner of Fuc Thuan store on the west side. He used to make bank by supplying fruit to the 1%, but that was before we showed up. Ever since our store opened, his revenue plummeted by half Major L for him. That morning, Wang Tam pulled up with a group of thugs, blocked our entrance, and kicked over a basket of our premium strawberries. The perfectly ripe berries rolled into the dirt and he sneered, "Princess, my foot. Opening this trash shop, I bet you used some dark magic to force these crops to grow. How else would everyone be so obsessed with your stuff? My customers ate your produce and got major food poisoning. You better give me an explanation right now." His goons started shoving the display shelves, sending the line of customers scrambling in fear. I knelt down to pick up the berries, my heart aching, before looking up to give him the coldest glare. My produce is homegrown with zero shortcuts, strictly organic, and definitely no dark magic. You say someone got sick? Bring them here to look me in the eye and stop capping. You little country bumpkin, how dare you talk back to me? Wang Tam tried to shove me, but Mozi slid in and blocked him just in time. Watch your tone, Boss Wang. The lady is a princess appointed by the emperor himself. You're literally asking for a death sentence by acting up like this. What do I have to be afraid of? She's just a vegetable farmer. Maybe that royal title of hers was snatched through some shady dark magic. No sooner had the words left his mouth than someone from the crowd clapped back. I've been eating veggies from He-An's shop every single day, and I've never felt better, so stop lying about people getting sick. Shopkeeper Wang is just pressed because his own vegetables are overpriced and wilted. No wonder his business is flopping. The old woman I helped earlier even hobbled forward with her cane, pointing a finger at Wang San. You black-hearted snake. The princess graciously taught us how to farm, and she even gave my grandson free vegetable porridge. How dare you try to slander her like that? The crowd immediately turned on Wang San, leaving his face looking 50 shades of tragic. Just then Shen Yan rode up on his horse. He'd just finished court when he heard about the drama at the shop, and his expression was giving major "you're all dead" energy. He dismounted, stepped right up to me, gently brushed the dirt off my hands, and glared at Wang San with lethal intensity. Shopkeeper Wang, fabricating lies to slander a princess bestowed by the imperial court and sabotaging a business. Do you have any idea what the penalty is? Wang San's legs turned to jelly the moment he saw Shen Yan wasn't playing, but he still tried to gaslight everyone. I'm not making it up. Someone really ate her vegetables and felt sick.
Oh?
Who? When? Where? Was there an imperial physician to back it up? If you can't provide receipts, that's a direct insult to the throne. Let's head to the Shuntian prefecture office to file a report. I'll invite the magistrate himself to conduct a thorough investigation, and while we're at it, we can trace all your moves from the past few days to see exactly who's pulling your strings behind the scenes. Wang San was so shook, he looked like he'd seen a ghost, and he collapsed onto the ground with a loud thud. Your Grace, please have mercy. I was just being a total idiot. A stranger approached me a few days ago, gave me 50 taels of silver to come here and cause a scene, and they claim to be an old associate from the Duke's secondary branch. They've been plotting in the chateaus for a while. The Shuntian prefecture guards hauled Wang San and his goons away in a heartbeat, then started digging into the second branch's remaining dirt catching a few snakes who were out there stirring up drama. Once the truth came to light, the townspeople swarmed the shop, claiming they were just there to support the humble princess. I had the staff restack the veggies and handed out some free strawberries to the crowd. The shop was popping off, more lit than it had ever been before. But the drama hadn't completely died down just yet. A few days later, rumors started floating around the capital again, saying I was just some country bumpkin and asking what right I had to be raking in all this cash, claiming that my royal title was clearly gained by using some shady, seductive vixen tactics to manipulate Shen Yan and the emperor. These rumors went viral, and even people who didn't know the full story started pointing fingers and talking trash. Shen Yan was worried I'd be in my feelings, so he closed the shop for a few days to give us a break and took me for a walk through the Imperial Garden's vegetable patch. I sat in the dirt planting potatoes and laughed at him. I don't care if people doubt my farming skills. Once they taste the food, they'll know the truth. Besides, you already know I'm the real deal when it comes to hard work. Shen Yan sat down right next to me and helped me pluck some weeds. I know you don't care, but I'm not about to let you be disrespected like that. He secretly had his people gather receipts on the rumor mongers, then brought in eunuch Li from the palace, along with the commoners I'd helped and the nobles who'd bought my produce, to testify, and set the record straight right in the imperial court. Once the emperor caught wind of it, he personally issued an imperial edict. He praised me for being down-to-earth and hardworking, holding me up as a role model for valuing agriculture. He even gifted me a bunch of premium farming tools and seeds to make sure the Imperial Garden's crops stayed top-tier. Once that edict dropped, the rumors vanished into thin air, and the reputation of the Heian veggie shop hit a new high. People were even traveling from outside the city just to buy greens, saying, "Eating the princess's veggies brings you good karma." I kept my routine, planting and working in the shop every day. But I knew in my heart, regardless of how much royal favor I got, or how much clout I built up, it all ultimately came down to my own two hands to survive. Just like the crops in the field, you only get a good harvest if you put in the real work. With the shop business stable, I handed over the management to the staff, so I could focus on the gardens. Shen Yan gave me total control over the empty plot in the Imperial Garden, sent over top-shelf farming equipment, and even picked out the most lightweight wooden buckets for watering. Nowadays, I stay busy in the Imperial Garden and the manor's fields, getting my hands dirty and planting potatoes. Shen Yan would come by to be with me as soon as he finished his court duties, sometimes helping me pull weeds, other times just watching me work from the edge of the field. Those days were sweeter than roasted sweet potatoes. Such peaceful times made me slowly forget the hardships back home, but some parts of the past just can't be outrun. That afternoon, I was squatting in the Marquis's vegetable garden, planting potatoes, when Mozi hurried over, looking visibly awkward. "Madam, There's a woman at the estate gates demanding to see you. She claims to be your birth mother, and she's out there wailing and causing a scene to get in, saying that since you're living in luxury now, you're obligated to acknowledge her. Those two words, birth mother, hit my heart like a pair of ice blocks. The small hoe in my hand clattered to the ground, and my fingertips instantly went cold. My mind spiraled uncontrollably, flashing back to the dark dirt floor hut from my childhood, where my mother would always shield me, whispering prayers while cowering under my father's abuse. But it was also her. She was the one with bloodshot eyes, who shoved me onto the carriage, headed for the Marcus's estate, thrusting half a corn cake into my hand, choking out, "Whoa, you have to survive." Only then did I realize that while her protecting me was real, the poverty-stricken reality of being sold by my father for food was just as real. The nights before I was sold, I always heard her sobbing outside my door, but in the end she still hardened her heart and sent me away. I was trembling all over, instinctively shrinking back toward where Shenyan usually stood, my voice hitching. "I'm not seeing her, tell her to leave." But before Motzi could even turn around, a familiar shrill wail pierced the air, sharp enough to cut through the estate walls. I bit my lip, feeling a mix of terror and panic, laced with a bitter, unspeakable ache. Just then, a pair of warm hands gently gripped my wrists. It was Shen Yan. I didn't even know when he'd returned from court. His eyes filled with concern as he softly reassured me. "Don't be afraid. I'm here. I'll go with you to see what's going on. And if you don't want to see her, Phil, we'll just kick her out." Shen Yan led me to the gates, where we saw a woman clinging to the doorframe, sobbing her heart out. She was dressed in ragged, patched-up clothes. Her hair was a brittle, tangled mess, and her face was worn by years of hardship. It was my birth mother, Lu Shi. The moment she saw me, her eyes lit up, and she instantly broke past the guards, lunging forward to grab my hand, only to be blocked by Shen Yan. Lu Shi stumbled back, then plopped onto the ground, slapping her thighs and wailing at the top of her lungs. It was an ear-splitting performance, dripping with equal parts shame and greed. "My Ahuo, my poor ill-fated daughter, you've finally agreed to see your mother. Back then, I had no choice. Your father was so obsessed with money. The Marcus's estate came by saying they wanted you to marry the heir for a good luck ritual and promised us silver, so your father agreed on the spot. I knew you were terrified of strangers, and I begged your father, but in the end, I was no match for him. The Marquis's manor is a total flex, and honestly, staying here beats starving in the sticks. At least it's a way to survive." She meant that, but she conveniently left out that she was only half forced and half willing to be a total leech. She took a sneaky peek at the fine silk robes on Shen Yan and the pure wealth of the manor. Her greed was literally radiating off her. Her sobbing shifted in tone. "Every single day for years, Mom has missed you, crying all night until my hair turned gray. Your father passed away last year, and I'm all alone now. I literally can't survive out there. Ahuo, you're a royal princess now. You're living the high life. You can't just ghost your own mother. Give me some silver, and bring me into the manor so I can finally live the good life. I'll do the laundry, cook, and serve you and the heir." I hid behind Shen Yan, gripping his robes like my life depended on it. I kept my head low, acting all shook and lost. All the trauma and insecurity from back then came flooding back. But then I saw those gray hairs at her temples, and remembered how she once took a hoe strike for me. So in the end, I couldn't bring myself to be a total savage. Seeing I was silent, the Lu woman started crying harder, crawling forward to grab the hem of Shen Yan's robe. "Oh, heir, please have mercy on this old woman, and let Ahuo acknowledge her mother. Back then I was totally forced into it, I swear." Shen Yan brushed her hand away gently, his voice cold and devoid of emotion, yet radiating absolute main character energy. "Mrs. Lu, you protected Ahuo once, and I respect that, but you still stood by while your husband sold her out. Now she's my wife, a royal princess appointed by the emperor, and she's under my protection." He turned to Mozi and said, "Bring me 100 taels of silver." A moment later Mozi walked out, carrying a heavy pouch. Shen Yan placed the silver in front of her, his voice chillingly formal. "This 100 taels is for two things. 1, to thank you for protecting Ahuo back then, and 2, to officially cut ties forever." He paused, his gaze sharp enough to draw blood. "From now on you and Awo are complete strangers. She is not some item for you to trade for quick cash. She is my legal wife and a royal princess appointed by the emperor. If you dare step foot in this manor again or go around clout chasing, don't blame me for the karma I'm about to serve you." Seeing the cash, the Liu woman's eyes lit up like a Christmas tree. She grabbed the pouch, hugged it tight, and her crying cut off instantly. She stared at the bag for a She looked up at me again, a flash of hesitation crossing her face. But in the end she gritted her teeth, clutched the silver, and stood up. She didn't say another word, just turned around and bolted. She was probably terrified Shen Yan would change his mind, so she wanted to dip with the bag as fast as possible. That retreating figure was in such a rush, not a single ounce of attachment, just the desperate greed for the money. Right at that moment, a chorus of honks erupted. The flock of white geese I raised came charging over in formation. I'd raised them from eggs I brought from the countryside, and now they were big, sturdy, and usually pretty chill, but they're insanely protective of their girl. Seeing Lu Shi pulling and pushing at me earlier, the geese were feeling some type of way, surrounding me and pacing in circles, then stretching their necks to honk at her, retreating back like they were warning her not to even think about coming back. Lu Shi got spooked by the honking and booked it even faster, vanishing into thin air in a heartbeat. I stood there, watching her silhouette completely disappear, and the massive weight that had been pressing down on my chest for years suddenly lifted. Turns out, all the lingering expectations and emotional baggage I still had completely evaporated the moment she scrambled away with that silver. As the wind brushed my cheek, I whispered, not sure if it was for Shen Yan or for myself, that I didn't have to look at the sky anymore. I finally had a home. Back in the village, I only had my mother's protection, constantly walking on eggshells around my father, terrified of being hit or yelled at. Now with Shen Yan having my back, a cozy little courtyard, my garden, and my geese, this is finally a home that actually belongs to me. Shen Yan turned around and pulled me into a gentle embrace. He could feel me still trembling a little, so he softly patted my back, his voice thick with empathy. He leaned down to kiss my temple, his vow solemn and unshakable. Whoa, with me here from now on, no one will ever dare to bully you again. I'm going to give you the most grand coronation ceremony, so everyone knows you are the one and only wife of this Shen Yan, and the only person in my heart. I leaned into his chest, taking in the faint scent of ink clinging to him. My heart feeling so warm. Turns out the feeling of having someone protect you and a place to call home is top tier. A warm breeze blew through the courtyard, making the potato sprouts I planted in the imperial garden sway with lush, vibrant green life. For days now, Shen Yan has been hiding in the study whispering with Mozi, and when I peeked in to ask what he was up to, he just smiled and ruffled my hair, saying he was prepping a surprise for me. Only later did I find out that for my investiture ceremony, he completely ditched the traditional protocols of the Marquess's estate. Even the emperor teased him for being more stressed about his wife's ceremony than actually attending morning court. I couldn't help but laugh. He's always treated me well. Why go to such lengths? On the day of the ceremony, the Marquess's estate was buzzing before the sun was even fully up. The seamstress brought over my ceremonial robe, and it wasn't the usual over-the-top, gaudy phoenix crown and heavy embroidery. Instead, it was a gown cut from white silk, smooth to the touch with ice-blue water narcissus vines trailing down the hem, the very image of the day I was born. The collar and cuffs were studded with tiny pearls, simple and elegant, yet still serving looks. This was the redesign I'd specifically asked the seamstress for. Shen Yan walked over to adjust my collar, his fingertips warm, whispering that he knew I hated being restricted, and this was the perfect balance of etiquette and comfort. I looked down, touching the narcissus flowers on my skirt, suddenly remembering the day of our wedding. When I was squatting on the floor, shivering in terror, I couldn't help but smile. It's way better than that red bridal veil. And way more comfortable, too. The Marchioness stood nearby, watching me look like a proper noblewoman, her expression warm and missing that old-school shade she used to throw. She personally took a kingfisher feather golden hairpin, crafted in the shape of a rice sprout, and gently tucked it into my hair. Whoa, from today on, you are a princess personally bestowed by His Majesty. No one will ever dare look down on you again. I nodded, my heart feeling all warm and fuzzy. As the auspicious hour arrived, the procession departed from the estate, stretching on forever as crowds packed the streets to catch a glimpse. I sat inside the palanquin, occasionally lifting the curtain to peek, and overheard people whispering, "Is this really the Princess Heian, who saved the heir with radish soup? She looks so elegant, she must be a genius." All the trash talking about a country bumpkinkin being paired with a sickly heir had officially died down. I didn't pay much attention to the gossip. I just thought the palanquin was way less stable than sitting on a ridge in my fields. The ceremony was held at the Manhwa Hall, with the Minister of Rites standing in the center, holding a bright yellow scroll of the imperial decree. It was the official edict personally signed by the emperor himself. The decree declared that the Marquise consort, was humble and wise, with a heart of gold, using her herbal knowledge to save lives in times of crisis, and using her farming wisdom to secure her future. I commend such virtue and hereby confer upon her the title of Princess Heian, granting her the stipend of a fourth-rank official and 100 acres of prime farmland west of the imperial garden to manage forever. I didn't catch most of that flowery, formal nonsense, but I heard Princess Heian and 100 acres of the imperial garden loud and clear, and honestly, I was low-key screaming inside. Imagine all the potatoes, radishes, and strawberries I could grow. I did the proper kowtow ritual Shen Yan taught me to show my gratitude. As I stood up, I caught Shen Yan watching me with eyes so warm and sparkly, they put the sunlight to shame. The banquet started right after the ceremony. Shen Yan had it set up in an open spot in the imperial garden, keeping my little vegetable patch in full view. I sat down and was immediately grinning. The table was stacked with all my favorite snacks: strawberry jam, cabbage dumplings, and some super fragrant roasted sweet potatoes. That man actually remembered everything I liked to eat. The Grand Princess walked over with a glass of wine and teased me. "Princess He-An, this banquet of yours actually tastes better than anything in the imperial kitchen." A crowd of noble women swarmed over, practically tripping over themselves to ask about my farming tips. Not a single person called me a country bumpkin anymore, just pure unfiltered envy in their eyes. I told them straight, you gotta till the soil, get plenty of sun, and use chicken poop for fertilizer. They were taking notes, like they were at a Harvard lecture, which made me feel a little shy. While I was chatting, I caught a glimpse of my white geese waddling, in a row in the distance, their necks held high and proud. Mac 2 was carefully following them around, terrified they'd crash the party and stress out the guests, and there were even a few chicks, in baskets carried by the maids, pecking at the ground in a way that made the ladies absolutely lose it with laughter. The princess's livestock really have a personality of their own, they chirped. Seeing my geese and chickens arrive, my eyes lit up, and I dragged Shen Yan over to see them. Shen Yan laughed and followed at my pace, thinking, they're her family, it's only right they witness her big day. He paused, his voice turning soft and serious, as if he were afraid to let the wind carry his words away. The luck-bringing marriage was just a cover, but meeting you was the most real thing to ever happen to me. Without you, I'd still be trapped in my own cold, dark, and plotting hell, living like a hollow shell. It was you who brought the scent of fresh soil into the manor, bringing life to this dead, suffocating place, and finally giving me the strength. Today's investiture ceremony isn't for you to play nice or pander to anyone. It's to let the entire capital know that you are the only wife of Shen Yan in this lifetime, and the one who holds my heart. I paused and looked back at him, the sunlight catching the strands of his hair, and his eyes were filled with nothing but tenderness and unwavering resolve. He was no longer that sickly, withered sapling from the start. I caught myself thinking back to when he didn't care that I uprooted flowers to plant vegetables. How he shielded me from the madam of the household, and held my hand while calling me his savior. My eyes suddenly stung with unshed tears. I reached out to grab his arm, burying my face into his sleeve. I don't care what others think, I only need him to understand. I love planting veggies, love watching the sprouts grow tall, love how he watches earthworms with me, and helps me write labels for the chicken coop. Our little yard full of geese and chickens holds all our peaceful, chaotic, and beautiful days. Shen Yan gently patted my back, his laughter soft and warm. Fine, whatever you say. From now on, after I leave court, I'll come join you in the fields. Plant whatever your heart desires. I'll protect you, protect your geese and chickens, and protect our home. As the banquet ended and twilight fell, the fading glow cast long shadows over the vegetable patch in the imperial garden. The potato sprouts I planted stood tall and elegant, with sparkling dewdrops still clinging to their leaves. I picked the freshest strawberry and held it to Shen Yan's lips. Try it, I just picked it, is it sweet? Shen Yan took a bite, the sweetness melting on his tongue, as he leaned in to press a gentle kiss to my forehead. Sweeter than anything else in this world. In the distance, my white geese honked as if they were cheering us on. The earthworms beneath the rows quietly tilled the soil, bringing the garden to life. The night breeze blew by, carrying the scent of fresh greenery and home-cooked meals. Everything felt so blissfully intertwined and peaceful. I knew this grand investiture ceremony wasn't an ending, but the beginning of endless beautiful days ahead for Shen Yan and me. After the ceremony, the back courtyard of the manor, the imperial garden patch, and my He-An shop officially became the most hyped spots in the capital. The vegetable garden was kept in pristine order by yours truly, with potatoes and radishes growing in endless bountiful cycles, and strawberries harvested batch after batch, all of which were sent straight to the shop. The produce business was already booming, and now we've got back orders, piled up through next month. I'm definitely not out here just lounging around. Besides managing the 2 gardens and running the shop, I'm constantly brainstorming new ways to hustle. I remember when I used wild ginseng roots and radish soup to save Shen Yan. Regulars at the shop are always complaining about seasonal colds and loss of appetite, wanting something gentle to help them recover. I recalled the old folks back home saying that every plant has its own spirit. Some herbs quench thirst, some flowers detoxify, so there had to be combinations that could cure minor ailments. I decided to learn from the weeds themselves. Perilla leaves and fresh ginger mixed with rice porridge can chase away the chills and warm the body, while dried flowers paired with rock sugar make a tea that clears heat and calms inflammation. I did a trial run of these concoctions back at the estate. Shen said it left him feeling refreshed, and a servant who happened to have a cold drank 2 bowls and was back on their feet in no time. Seeing the results, I figured why not bring these healing delicacies to the shop so everyone could get a taste. I cleared a corner in the Heian garden for a medicinal snack stall, assigned a quick-witted worker to manage it, and launched the Heian porridge and herbal tea line at a super affordable price. It blew up overnight, total sellout status every single day. Even the palace started placing special orders. The Empress herself said it was way more refreshing than anything the Imperial kitchen could whip up. The shop's revenue is officially hitting an all-time high. That day, Shen Yan got back from court, and instead of heading straight to the garden beds for me like usual, he went directly to the training grounds. I'd just finished portioning out the fresh perilla ginger porridge for the staff at Heian. It's our best seller, and always in high demand, so I grabbed a warm bowl and went to find him. From a distance, I saw him looking sharp in his gear, drawing his bow to hit the target. The arrow landed dead center, and the sunlight hitting him was pure main character energy. His posture was perfect, his complexion glowing with health, nothing like the fragile, sickly look he had before. Shen Yan, I called out, handing him the bowl, just made this for the shop. The perilla ginger porridge is great for the cold, perfect for after your workout. He put down his bow, took the bowl, and polished it off with a smirk. Anything made by A, he works better than all those fancy tonics from the Imperial kitchen. I scratched my head, eyeing his now much more toned, muscular arms. Eat more things from the earth, and get some sun. You'll be built different in no time. I'll plant some soybeans for you soon. Soy milk is great for the body, and once the harvest hits, we're adding a soy milk station to the shop. Everyone is going to be obsessed, I promise. He reached out to stroke my hair, his eyes filled with such tenderness. Fine, whatever you say, my love. My Ahi isn't just great at farming and running shops, she's a literal god-tier healer too. That didn't last long, though. An imperial decree arrived from the palace. The Empress claimed she'd heard rumors of my magical touch with plants and summoned me to learn a thing or two. The madam rushed to doll me up, shoving packets of flower seeds into my hands and nagging me to keep my mouth shut and play nice. But when I got to the Empress's palace, I realized nobody was actually trying to grow flowers. Turns out the master gardener had managed to kill a few peony pots and was losing sleep over it. The Empress grabbed my hand, pointing at the wilted peonies with a dramatic sigh. Princess Heian, the watering and fertilizing has never been late, so why are they dying like this? I knelt down and poked at the soil. It was packed way too tight, the roots couldn't even breathe. Your Highness, the soil is way too compacted, the roots are literally suffocating. It should be treated just like growing cabbage. You have to till the soil so the sun hits it, letting the roots grow deep so the plant stays healthy. Till the soil? The gardener chimed in, saying these precious peonies were too delicate to be handled like that. Plants and people aren't so different, you know. I grabbed a small hoe and started breaking up the dirt myself. No matter how precious, you have to be grounded. If the roots aren't solid, you won't survive the storm. The Empress watched mesmerized and actually rolled up her sleeves to help me till the dirt. The maids were shook to their core, pale as ghosts, but the Empress was actually beaming. Princess Heian, you make so much sense. This actual labor is way more practical than listening to the gardener's useless myths. Not long after I got back, a young guy named A Fu showed up at the estate, acting like he wanted a job as a cleaner. Mozi whispered to me that a Fu was actually a plant sent by Lord Wang, Shen Yan's political rival, trying to catch me doing something stupid so they could drag Shen Yan through the mud at court. I took one look at A Fu. He looked strong, like he could actually do some heavy lifting, and dragged him straight to the chicken coop. If you're here to work, you're gonna do it right. The chicken coop needs cleaning. You're coming with me to shovel poop. It'll make great fertilizer. A Fu looked completely stunned. He clearly wasn't expecting a princess to put him on literal poop duty. He looked so pressed. Your Highness, a fuck caught a whiff of the stench and literally turned green. I handed him a shovel. Why distinguish between noble and lowly labor? Look at my vegetables growing this lush. It's all thanks to the chicken fertilizer. Honest work builds character and keeps your head on straight. I didn't care if he wanted to or not. I started shoveling the manure myself. A Fook had no choice. He just had to bite the bullet and follow along. It looks easy, but it's actually back-breaking work. The sun had him drenched in sweat and struggling to stand straight. While shoveling, I told him, look, these earthworms love rich soil, which just proves this fertilizer is top tier. People are the same. You gotta stay grounded and stop thinking about taking Vine the easy way out. By the end of the day, a Fook was so exhausted he was practically rotting on the edge of the field, lacking the energy to even speak. At sunset, Shen Yan walked over and saw a fuck bowing down to me incessantly. Your Highness, I was wrong. I came into the estate with malicious intent because others put me up to it. trying to find things I shouldn't have been looking for. But seeing you work the fields and manage the shop with such a clear heart, I realize you're better than anyone I've met. I swear that from now on, I'll do honest work and never pull any sketchy moves again. I chuckled and handed him a piece of roasted sweet potato. It's fine. As long as you're willing to work, you're a good person in my book. Just stay at the estate and help me deliver the produce. It's much more chill than plotting drama. Fuck took the sweet potato, his eyes watering as he nodded. Thank you, Your Highness. I'll definitely put in the work from now on. Shen Yan walked up from behind, pulling me into a soft hug, his voice full of amusement. My wife is truly wise enough to hide her brilliance. A few words and a shovel of manure and you've already won over his heart. I took a bite of the sweet potato. What hiding brilliance? Please. I just think people get up to no good when they're bored. But when they work hard, watch the crops grow, and see the shop booming, they won't have the energy to plot against anyone. He let out a soft laugh and pressed a kiss to my forehead, saying, Fine by me. I have a feeling your little garden is about to become the most iconic spot in the capital. You think so? Before long, more people showed up begging to work at the estate, saying they wanted to learn my gardening and medicinal cooking secrets. I put them to work tilling soil, watering crops, and raising chickens, while the nimble ones stayed in the shop to handle customers and pack orders. The backyard of the estate and the shop were both thriving. The whole place was just vibes, full of laughter and productivity. The potatoes from the royal garden were finally harvested, so I was squatting by the ridge picking up the scraps left behind, planning to sow winter wheat. It's perfect for making wheat cakes for Shen Yan. Plus I can add wheat flour and rations to the shop's menu. It's guaranteed to be a hit. Mo Si came sprinting over, looking stressed. Young mistress, the heir just left the court, and he looks totally off, like something major went down. My heart just dropped. Before I could even stand up, I saw Shen Yan walking toward me with long hurried strides. His white silk robes were dusty, his brows furrowed, and that usual gentle warmth in his eyes was gone, replaced by pure heavy gloom. He grabbed my hands. His palms were freezing, and told me the situation at the border is critical. The food supplies aren't arriving. The soldiers are at their breaking point, and he's volunteered to lead the supply transport departing tomorrow. That news hit me like a ton of bricks. I squeezed his hands tight. He's barely recovered from his illness. The border is miles away and freezing, and swords don't exactly have eyes. How could I just let him go off and risk his life? But looking at the sense of duty in his eyes, I knew there was no talking him out of it. I bit my lip, forcing myself to swallow the panic bubbling inside. Fine, I said. I'll start prepping your supplies right now. The food needs to be filling, weather-resistant, and packed with energy. We've got dried greens, pickled radishes, and smoked beef in the shop. Perfect. It's all coming in handy. I didn't cry, and I didn't make a scene. I know Shen Yan carries the weight of the nation in his heart, and I know drama won't fix anything, so I focused on doing something actually useful. That night, the kitchen lights stayed on until dawn. I scoured the shop for every bit of dried stock we had, chopped it all up, and mixed it with roasted wheat and millet flour, adding that fragrant, savory smoked meat. With a drizzle of honey and sesame oil, I hand-pressed the dough into dense rock-solid rations using stone slabs. It's space-efficient and keeps you full. Plus it's got that fresh, earthy taste of greens. Way better than standard military gruel. I even packed some tart, dried forest berries, and tucked the small bags into the corners of the supply cart. On our final night before his departure, I finally stepped out of the kitchen, holding a small plate of the rations I'd just finished. I held a piece up to his lips. Try it. It's salty, savory, and chewy. Eat this whenever you get hungry on the road. He took a bite of the dried meat, his eyes slowly turning red. His throat tightened, and he could only choke out 2 words. So good. Don't just settle for scraps while out there. And no matter how busy you get, make sure you eat properly. I'll watch over the shop, so don't you worry about a thing. When I saw him off at the city gates, the morning mist hadn't cleared, and the gate flags were snapping in the wind. Shen Yan held my hand, his steps sluggish, clearly not wanting to leave. Ahuo, wait for me to return. We'll plant potatoes together, help you harvest the barley, and I'll never leave your side again. I pulled a small embroidered pouch from my pocket and pressed it into his palm. Inside was a single round seed. Shen Yan squeezed the pouch, his voice dropping to a raspy whisper. What is this? I looked up at him, my eyes stinging with heat. These are sunflower seeds. They're drought-resistant, fear no wind, and have the most insane survival rate. Whenever you miss me, bury one in the soil. Once it sprouts and blooms, that's when I'll come to bring you home. He gripped the pouch so hard, his fingertips trembled, then leaned down to press a burning kiss to my forehead. Deal. I'll wait for it to bloom, and I'll be waiting for you. Just stay safe at the manor, and don't worry about me. Take care of yourself and your vegetable patch. He clutched the pouch until his knuckles turned white. When he mounted his horse, he didn't dare look back. terrified that one glance would break his resolve. Months drifted by, and I kept busy tending the manor's vegetable patch, while also managing the operations at the heian shop, heading out to the fields before dawn to pick fresh greens for delivery. Life remained peaceful, yet the longing in my heart grew heavier by the day. Maki would occasionally bring news from the front lines, saying Shenyan shared the dried rations I made with his fellow soldiers, and they all agreed it was miles better than those rock-hard meat biscuits. It gave them actual energy, and even those dizziness spells and chronic sores that plagued so many before were finally clearing up. The soldiers even joked that once the war ended, they'd definitely visit the heian vegetable garden in the capital to try the fresh greens and medicinal meals. Shen Xian wrote that he'd planted the sunflowers on the patch of land beside the camp, and no matter how exhausted he was from battle, he'd go check on them. Watching the sprouts break through the soil to grow leaves, he hoped the war would end soon so he could return home to help me harvest those golden fields of barley. My heart felt so sweet hearing that. Every spare moment, I'd sit by the vegetable beds, talking to the vibrant green barley and the new sprouts, which had become my absolute peace of mind. Little sprouts, go tell Shenyan that you've seen these lush juicy greens. And tell him, once he's back for the wheat harvest, we'll be stacked to the ceiling. We'll mill it into the flour, for the wheat cakes he's obsessed with. As for this new batch of bok choy, I've been babying them with well water and fertilizer every day just for you. He always said my stir-fried cabbage is a top-tier delicacy, so I saved the best patch of soil for him to enjoy when he's back. I touched the damp soil in the field, my fingertips brushing the tender leaves, feeling like Shenyan could almost reach out and touch that dampness too. Every single blade of grass in this garden is overflowing with my longing. No wind or clouds needed to carry the message. When he sees the sunflowers thriving in the military camp, he'll know I'm still here holding down the fort for us. In this home of ours, I'm just praying for his safe return so we can tend the garden, harvest the crops, and watch the shop lights flicker on together. My wheat is finally heading, the green waves rippling in the breeze, when news arrives that Shenyan has claimed victory and is coming home. Maki ran back with the news, her face flushed with excitement. Young madam, the prince has won the war. He'll be back in the capital in a few days, and the emperor is personally meeting him at the city gates. Customers in the shop started popping champagne, or, well, cheering, to congratulate the prince, all clamoring to taste the wheat cakes I'd specifically crafted. I sat in the wheat field, my fingers skimming over the plump stalks, my heart feeling sweeter than honey. Those long days spent guarding the garden waiting for him, that aching longing, was finally about to land. But my joy was short-lived. The messy rumors circulating on the streets started creeping into the Marquis's estate. At the victory banquet, Princess Anla set her sights on Shenyan, and straight up asked the emperor for a royal decree to marry him, flaunting her gold and jade status. She even had the audacity to say that a war hero deserves a high-born noblewoman, implying a country bumpkin like me couldn't handle the spotlight and that running a shop is just plain embarrassing. Once that shade was thrown, the whispering in the streets turned into a full-blown roar. Even the servants in the estate lost their respect and started gossiping behind my back. Princess Anle is royal-born, dripping with status and serving major visuals. A decree like that? It's not exactly something you can just ghost. Sure, the young madam is a boss who can farm and run a business like a pro, but at the end of the day, she's still a farm girl, and how does she even compete with a princess's pedigree? We aren't saying too much, but if the emperor drops that marriage decree, the prince isn't exactly in a position to say no. It's just a shame, since the shop runs entirely on the young madam's hustle. If the management changes, this whole garden and business are total dead weight. They lowered their voices while talking, and though they still bowed to me, I caught every side-eye and judgmental glance, caught in 4K. The madam of the estate was spiraling, constantly pulling me aside to lecture me on propriety and reputation, but it was obvious she was just terrified of the royal power move crushing us. She just sighed in the end. You've been through so much. Just hold on a bit longer until Yan returns. Your shop is thriving, and that brings honor to our elite house. She knows exactly what she's doing. I didn't let it get to me, kept tending to my veggies and auditing the books like always, just minding my own business. The letter Shen Yan sent from the frontier literally said, He's peaceful days are the only things I'm fighting to protect. He promised to protect me, and I trust him. What outsiders say or whisper, literally irrelevant. That day, I was busy hauling a bucket of feed for the fat hogs in the pen. Suddenly, I heard a commotion at the courtyard gate. I turned around and saw a crowd of palace servants surrounding some girl. She was decked out in gold-embroidered silk, dripping in jewels, and looking so entitled. The second she stepped in, she plugged her nose, frowning in total disgust. Why does this house smell like dirt? And it's mixed with the stench of pig manure, too. It's honestly so vile. Didn't even have to ask to know, this was the infamous Princess Anlay. She strutted right up to me, looking down her nose with that classic elitist vibe, total disdain in her eyes. So, you're the rustic little ahe? Honestly, you're just as tacky as I imagined, covered in dirt. Shen Yange is a war hero now. He's royalty, and you don't deserve him. Be smart and just sign the divorce papers voluntarily. The princess might even throw some silver your way, so you can shut down that dumpy shop and live a quiet life. I was mid-pour with the hog feed, so I just nodded seriously, and pointed at the pigs munching away. Princess, you're right, pig manure does smell. But once it ferments, it enriches the soil, it grows the best grain, and it keeps the pigs fat and healthy. And that pork stew? It tastes even better. The signature pork belly sauce at my shop is made from these exact pigs, and it's always sold out. This smell of soil and manure? That's the scent of a real life, and I'm definitely not ashamed of it. But the princess was shook, totally not expecting that clap back, and her face went beet red in seconds. You unrefined country bumpkin, you are literally impossible to talk to. How could Shen Yange ever fall for someone like you? Well, he already did, didn't he? I stood up straight and dusted the grime off my hands. I know how to farm, I know how to make rations. I can grow the cabbage he loves most, and keep this home safe with him. Can you, your highness, even do that? The princess was shaking with rage, just about to snap when she heard familiar footsteps at the gate. I looked up and saw Shen Yan had returned. He hadn't even changed out of his official armor, covered in dust and grit, but his gaze was locked on me, walking straight toward this pigsty. His eyes held no one else, only me. The princess, thrilled, tried to step forward to greet him, but Shen Yan coldly dodged her. He strode over to my side, wiped the mud off my cheek with his hand, his voice firm and leaving no room for argument. If His Majesty intends to force this marriage, forgive me for refusing to obey. My household already has a feisty wife with a heart so pure, a personality so honest, and the scent of soil in this manner. These vegetable patches are her treasures. And they are my treasures too. By my side there is no room for anyone else, especially not some high and mighty royal, who looks down on honest hard work. Hearing him call me a feisty wife caught me off guard, so I tugged his sleeve and looked at him curiously. Shen Yan, am I really that feisty? I don't start fights with people, I don't bully anyone, and I manage our shop perfectly fine. He looked down, his eyes crinkling with amusement, and pressed a burning kiss to my forehead, his voice sweet enough to melt. You aren't a feisty wife, you're the one I'd give my life to protect. Without you, I wouldn't be who I am today, and this home wouldn't be as solid as it is. The princess stood there, her face turning every shade of pale and green, threw me one last toxic glare, and scrambled away with her entourage, completely shook. The onlookers who were waiting for me to fail were left totally speechless. I looked at Shen Yan's weather-beaten face, touched his armor. It was cold, hard, and still held the chill of the borderlands. You're starving, aren't you? I braised some pork for you, and steamed some wheat buns, all your favorites. Shen Yan grabbed my hand tight, his eyes glowing with genuine joy. Coming home to eat food cooked by Ahe is better than any fancy royal feast. Time passed like the rows of vegetables in our yard. Crop after crop, years flew by, and I even gave birth to twins. Our son, Shen Zhe, was named after the essence of the harvest, carrying the grounded spirit of the earth. Our daughter, Shen Wan, was named for the lushness of greenery, just like the healthy sprouts in our garden. And just like the two kids didn't inherit a single ounce of Shen Yan's refined, scholarly vibe. If anything, they're just like me. Since they were little, they've loved playing around in the vegetable fields, clutching tiny hoes to help me till the dirt, and chasing crickets like absolute menaces. They're always running to the shop to help serve veggies to the customers, and the staff just laughs and calls them the mini shopkeepers. Shen Yan went out of his way to set up a private study for them, but the kids weren't exactly feeling it at first, and Shen Yan didn't force the issue. He just taught them while they were out turning the soil, casually dropping wisdom like, sow 1 grain in the spring, and you'll harvest 10,000 in the fall. Or he'd point at a sprout and say, look, this one grew crooked and needs to be straightened. People are just the same. Slowly they started spending a solid half hour in the study, before running back to the fields to get their hands dirty, finally catching the vibe of agricultural life, while still keeping up with their books. The old Marcus Manor has completely transformed into the most unique aesthetic in the capital. The front yard is all dignified government prestige, while the backyard is just pure cottagecore, smelling like fruits and flowers. Outside the shop, business is booming with carts, and people constantly rolling through. Because the veggies I grow, the pickles I cure, and the medicinal meals I prep aren't just getting sent to the palace on the regular, but even the royals and high-ranking nobles are pulling strings just to get their hands on them. Business is scaling up, and we've even opened branches selling dried goods and herbal kits. Our life is thriving, but it's the warmth of the home, the cozy domestic energy, that matters most. filled with the kids' laughter and the honking of geese. As Shen Yan's footsteps at sunset mingle with the scent of fresh greens to make my heart melt. Later on, when Shen Yan rose to become the chief grand secretary, he was constantly swamped with state affairs. But everyone in the capital knows this top official has one non-negotiable habit. The second he's off the clock, he swaps his robes for simple coarse cloth and either dives straight into the backyard to help me out, or heads to the shop to lend a hand. His tilling skills are top tier now. Watering, fertilizing, weeding. He handles it all better than even Mozi. Whether he's balancing the books or packing orders, he's a total pro, showing zero ego and zero chief grand secretary attitude. Sometimes, when Shenzi and Shenzhuan pester him to go cricket catching, he's always down to play and be the best dad. The rigid, cold-as-ice imperial aura he carries at court and in the shop completely vanished, leaving nothing but pure, unadulterated softness in his eyes. I was just doing my usual thing, squatting by the field edges, zoning out at the clouds, and the way the sunlight hit the lush, green veggie patches. That afternoon, I had just finished tending to the strawberries, sitting on a tiny wooden stool, just completely spaced out. Suddenly, familiar footsteps echoed from behind me, and a pair of warm arms wrapped around me, pulling me into a soft hug, his chin resting right in the crook of my shoulder. He smelled faintly of fresh ink and paper. What are you looking at again? His voice was so tender, a little worn out from court, but dripping with absolute devotion. I pointed at this chubby, golden glowing cloud floating by. Look, doesn't that cloud look exactly like the braised pork belly we had yesterday? So round and greasy looking, it actually makes me hungry. He let out a low chuckle. The vibration in his chest felt so warm against my back. It really does, doesn't it? Let's braise some pork with those pickles you made tonight, so Takni and Uyenni can clear out a few extra bowls of rice. Not too far off, Takni was chasing Uyenni, laughing his head off while waving a cricket he'd just caught. A line of white geese waddled past the vegetable rows, occasionally honking, while the breeze carried the scent of the garden, that sweet, fresh strawberry tang mixed with the earthy smell of the soil. Leaning back into Shenyan, my heart felt so full it was basically overflowing. Back in the day, I was just the village simpleton everyone loved to mock, constantly looking at the sky, just hoping to stay out of trouble. But now, I've got land, a husband who puts in the work, and a love I can actually lean on. I've got adorable kids and a man who has my back for life, plus a thriving veggie business that keeps life steady. The country girl who was once the punchline of every joke in the capital has finally secured her dream glow-up. I don't need to be a noble lady or some high-ranking official's wife. I'm just Shenyan's he, the girl who keeps the garden growing, watches her family smile, and lives a simple, happy life. Turns out, this is what peace and quiet really feels like. Having a sky to gaze at and a person to rely on, having a garden to tend and a home to protect. Honestly, it's the ultimate main character